Here we got a dribble drive, change of direction by Bryant. Slam!
The NBA has a long history. While the league had some trouble sticking around and securing TV deals in its early days, it's now one of the longest-running professional sports leagues in the U.S. A lot of players have been drafted and have played out their careers by now, both good players and not-so-good ones. In this video, we'll take a look into the best-ever players drafted by some of the NBA's historic teams. But first, a simple reminder on how to enter our brand-new giveaway. We're giving away either an iPhone X Max, the new iPad Mini, or a MacBook Pro. It's all your choice, so be sure to leave a like, comment the keyword, subscribe, and turn on notifications to enter this giveaway. It's really that simple. Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers are not only the current champions of the NBA thanks to the combination of LeBron James and Anthony Davis, they're also the most successful team in the history of the league, and are notable for winning championships in a number of different eras with many different star lineups. However, in this video, we won't be talking about LeBron and Anthony Davis and their impact on the franchise. That's because they aren't players that were drafted by the Lakers, but rather acquired later in their careers. To start out this all-drafted team of Lakers, we'll list one of the most notable players to ever put on the uniform for Los Angeles, Magic Johnson. Johnson is regarded as the top point guard of all time by many, as well as one of the best basketball players, period. Johnson is put up there with the ranks of Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and the other top names in the pantheon of the best NBA players of all time. So it's possible to not put Johnson here in the starting five of this all-drafted Lakers team, even though the franchise also drafted fellow Hall of Fame point guard Jerry West. West played there for 14 years and was a champion with the Lakers in the 70s before their greater success a decade later, but ultimately isn't as highly praised and successful as Johnson. Johnson, on the other hand, has 5 championships with the Lakers after the Lakers selected him with the #1 overall draft pick. He was a 3-time regular season MVP, also in addition to being a 3-time finals MVP, something that no other Lakers point guard can boast. The obvious selection for the shooting guard spot is Kobe Bryant. However, Bryant won't be listed here because the Lakers technically didn't draft him. The team arranged a trade with the Charlotte Hornets, but never officially made a move for the Hornets pick, instead instructing the Hornets on whom to draft and then making a trade for Bryant on draft night. Instead of Bryant, the player at the shooting guard spot in this starting five will be Eddie Jones, who the Lakers selected number 10 overall. Jones doesn't have a title with the team, but was an all-star 3 times while playing with them between 1994 and 1999. He left the franchise before their success in the 2000s, but did have some good seasons while playing in LA, where he averaged double-digit points per game and contributed all around. Another #1 draft pick comes in at the small forward position, James Worthy. Worthy is a rather obvious selection, who is a 3-time champion and a 7-time All-Star, in addition to also being a Finals MVP 1 time. The Lakers took him with the top draft pick in 1982, following a successful college career with North Carolina. Worthy is not only in the Hall of Fame, but is also one of the relatively few players named on the list of the 50 greatest in NBA history. The power forward spot on this list is a toss-up, because the Lakers have had a number of good players at this position over the years. However, the player that will take up this spot for the Lakers on this team is Vern Mickelson, who played with the franchise when they were still the Minneapolis Lakers. Mickelson was a territorial pick in the 1949 draft and became a 4-time champion in the early days of the franchise. He was a member of the Hall of Fame and helped to shape the stereotypical power forward role after playing the position before its role was solidified. The last Hall of Famer to take up a spot in this starting five is Vlade Divac at center. Divac is one of the best international big men in the history of the NBA and played for multiple teams throughout his career, but he was initially drafted out of Europe in the first round by the Lakers in 1989. He initially spoke no English, but would grow on his teammates and the fans in LA to become a respected player who is regarded as one of the top names to come out of Yugoslavia into the NBA. Following his playing career, Divac would become an executive and most recently served as the general manager of the Sacramento Kings, a franchise he played for. Boston Celtics. Another one of the most storied teams in the history of the NBA is the Boston Celtics. The Celtics had the most success in the early years of the league when they were led by Bill Russell, and as dominant as any dynasty that would come in the years ahead. But that doesn't mean the Celtics lack a history of success outside of that. They also had plenty of success in the 70s and 80s, and this history of being one of the top franchises in in the NBA has led the Celtics to have a history of drafting many star players. Rajon Rondo, who was at the heart of the Celtics team when the franchise took home their last championship, comes in as the starting point guard here, despite having plenty of competition. It's a tough decision, but Rondo has remained in the league long after leaving the Celtics and has managed to become a two-time champion after winning another ring with the Lakers. His statistics have remained good across his career, and when he was at his peak, he was able to duel with any of the other top point guards in the NBA, including his rival, Chris Paul. The player at shooting guard, on the other hand, has the second most rings of any player. We'll put Sam Jones in this spot because of that, and because of his role in the championship teams that were led by 11-time champion Bill Russell. Jones played his entire career with the Celtics and made both the NBA's 25th and 50th anniversary teams, in addition to being inducted into the Hall of Fame. He was a good player individually too, and not just someone that gained a bunch of rings through playing next to Russell. Individually, Jones was an All-Star 5 times and on the All-NBA second team 3 times. Larry Bird played both forward spots, but we'll have to put him down as a small forward because that's where he's more known and spent the majority of his time. He's a hands-down pick for this spot, thanks to his status as the icon of the Celtics during the 80s, when he took home 3 championships and rivaled the Lakers dynasty led by Magic Johnson. Bird versus Magic is one of the most iconic player rivalries in basketball, and you can't include Magic in the Lakers' top 5 without including Bird in the Celtics' counterpart. Bird is the only player to win Rookie of the Year, MVP, Finals MVP, Coach of the Year, and Executive of the Year, owing to his career in coaching and the front office after his retirement. He was also named to the NBA's all-time starting 5 as a power forward. Kevin McHale was selected by the Celtics with the 3rd overall pick and will be our selection for the power forward spot. He played alongside Bird and is regarded as one of the best power forwards of all time, having also won 3 titles while being inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame after his career. McHale also had a stint much later as the head coach of the Houston Rockets, but this wouldn't pan out and the former player moved into TV. At center, the obvious choice is Bill Russell. Russell was selected with the 3rd pick by the Celtics and would become possibly the most well-known player in the history of the franchise thanks to his 11 titles. It's true that the rules were different when Russell played, but Russell and other early dominating big men are also part of the very reasons that sparked some of the rule changes that define the position today. He's the greatest Boston Celtic and one of the greatest centers overall in NBA history. San Antonio Spurs. The San Antonio Spurs are another one of the most successful teams in NBA history, but their best draft picks come from more recent years compared to the Lakers or the Celtics. Despite their lack of historical dominance, the Spurs are still a force to be reckoned with as a franchise and are considered one of the best at finding talent through the draft. The Spurs are known for taking a chance on international players, and the first player on their all-drafted team is one of those international prospects. This is Tony Parker, who won 4 titles with the Spurs as their starting point guard and was the Finals MVP in 2007 when the Spurs took down LeBron James and the Cavaliers. Parker was initially playing in France and wasn't the most highly rated prospect in the draft. In fact, the Spurs were able to snag him all the way down at the 28th pick. The shooting guard in this lineup is another recognizable international player, Manu Ginobili. While Parker is from France, Ginobili is from Argentina and was an even lower rated prospect coming out of the South American country. He wasn't selected until the 2nd round, the 57th pick in fact. But he would still win 4 rings with the Spurs and looks like a player that will make it in the Hall of Fame when eligible. He only retired in 2018, so we're still waiting on that. For the small forward spot, we have to select Kawhi Leonard. Leonard is known for winning a title with the Raptors and moving on to become the centerpiece of the Clippers. But his career started with the Spurs after they picked him 15th overall coming out of San Diego State. Leonard wasn't a fully polished prospect back then, and the Spurs were betting on his future potential and athleticism. But it turned out to be a good bet, as Leonard would eventually win a Finals MVP award with the team and become recognized as one of the league's best defenders. At power forward, the clear choice is Tim Duncan. Duncan was a part of 5 different championship teams as he arrived before Ginobili and Parker, and was on the 1999 Spurs team that won a title. Duncan is already in the College Basketball Hall of Fame and is set to become a Hall of Famer for his NBA career too. He was a Finals MVP 3 times and impressively an All-Star 15 times. As for the last spot, that belongs to center David Robinson, who won a title with Duncan in 1999 and also won another ring in 2003 towards the end of his career. Robinson was selected with the #1 overall pick by the Spurs and is regarded as one of the best centers in the history of the league. He was also a 10-time All-Star and a 4-time member of the All-NBA first team, giving him a more solid record than any other center the Spurs have drafted in their history.